Your credit score and bankruptcy. That topic is closely related to another podcast I will be doing called basically Life After Bankruptcy, because your credit score is something that most people really worry about prior to filing a bankruptcy case. They wonder what will be the effect on my credit score when I file this bankruptcy case. Well, before we get into that, I have to give you the necessary disclaimer and that I am an attorney. I have a law firm, Bolger Law Firm in Fairfax, Virginia. We are a debt relief agency according to the U.S. Bankruptcy Code, and we do help people file for relief under the Bankruptcy Code. Furthermore, these podcasts are general in nature, and although the bankruptcy law is federal in nature, it applies in all 50 states and territories. Each state has its own exemption scheme for protecting property. So the information you get here is not only very general, but it is also very much aimed at residents of of Maryland and Virginia, and DC. So, your credit score and bankruptcy. I remember when I first started practicing bankruptcy law, I thought, well, I guess when you file a bankruptcy case, your credit score must go to zero, perhaps, and had no idea what would happen to someone's credit score. In fact, it was kind of beside the point because the person was in need of the relief only a bankruptcy case can afford, and come what may about the credit scores. But it's really quite interesting what happens to credit scores when people file bankruptcy cases. I assembled a few notes here, and there was one study which I had set aside an article regarding some time ago. I read it again today, and I think it's right on point. That first of all, kind of the general message in this article is that there are many myths about bankruptcy, and in fact, the first sentence in this article, an article which appeared on Credit.com a few years back, written by a gentleman, Steve Rode. It's quite good. The first sentence is, in the world of personal finance, credit concerns and debt issues, there is no single issue that is more misunderstood than bankruptcy. And I would tend to agree with that. It seems like it's a topsy-turvy world where black is white and white is black, and people just can't believe what I tell them about what bankruptcy will do or can do. And this study is quite interesting. This article cites a study which is quite interesting. It is the Federal Reserve Bank of New York did a study a few years back on the effect of bankruptcy on people's abilities to obtain debt, credit in the future. And a conclusion of the study is that people who had filed bankruptcy had access to more lines of credit than those who limped along, as he says, in a poor financial state. They're comparing people who are insolvent to people who file bankruptcy. Who are people who are insolvent? Many of the people who file bankruptcy are insolvent, and people who are insolvent sometimes do not file bankruptcy. And kind of this study compared the experience of the people who are insolvent, they're struggling to pay their debts, but they don't file bankruptcy, with people who do file bankruptcy. The study showed, in summary, I'm just going to give you a kind of a nutshell look at this. It's indicated that individuals who do go bankrupt open a larger number of new unsecured accounts than those who choose not to. So it says there is a misconception that filing bankruptcy closes the door to new credit, whereas it can actually give the consumer access to more credit, according to the study. People who have filed bankruptcy learn that reality immediately following the discharge of their debt when their mailboxes start to fill with new credit offers again, says the article. And the study says, furthermore, that individuals who go bankrupt experience a sharp boost in their credit score after bankruptcy, whereas the recovery in credit score is much lower for individuals who do not go bankrupt, says the Federal Reserve Bank. Well, and the study goes on to demonstrate how the failure to file bankruptcy has a serious impact on a person's ability to save for their retirement as well. And it's quite significant, but I'll save that for another day. It has been, as I said, when I first started bankruptcy practice, I was thinking, okay, I guess you go to zero after you file your bankruptcy case with your credit score. But that was not my experience. And in fact, over the years, I've learned that quite the opposite is true, oftentimes. The software that I use to file bankruptcy cases does tell me each time what someone's credit score is. The day I pull the report. Furthermore, it will predict a person's credit score 12 months after the case is over. And a case of your typical Chapter 7 bankruptcy case takes 3 to 4 months. So you're talking about, 16 months after the case is filed. And these credit scores that they show, present score versus score 1 year after the case is over, the predicted score is based on the following assumption. It assumes that a person opens a revolving credit card account with a $500 credit limit 2 months after discharge, and then maintains a balance of $300 on that card for 10 months. That's it. That is not a difficult thing to do. That is achievable for most people. Okay, so these scores I'm about to tell you from past clients, these are just a few I pulled. There's thousands of them. Well, here's a few I just pulled just to demonstrate. These are not unusual, and I got the good, the bad, and the ugly in here. Here's a gentleman who filed a score of 594 when he filed. 12 months after the case was over, his score was predicted to be 667, a gain of 73 points. His spouse had a higher score at filing, 613, and her score was predicted to be 648, a gain of 35 points. Now, here's another one, elderly gentleman. He had a 547 score when we filed. His score was predicted to be 644, a gain of 97 points in 1 year, or 1 year after discharge. Here's another one. I think middle-aged guy, maybe 45, 50 years old. He had a 542. When we filed, his score was predicted to be 650, a gain of 108 points. Now, the one situation where you will see a credit score go down is when you have a decent score when you file. Many people, as you noticed, file when their scores are low because they've tried everything else. They stop making payments. Their credit score is being pounded. Well, here's a person who hasn't quite gotten to that point. He had a 723 when we filed. His score was predicted to be 690, a loss of 33 points in 1 year. So that can happen. But again, this person even will rebuild quicker as the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th month passes than a person who does not file bankruptcy, because the person who has filed bankruptcy has discharged their debt. Okay, and that is just a significant difference. So, I guess in summary, I talked about the fact there's so many myths and misconceptions about bankruptcy at the beginning of this podcast. And the article I was referring to does point out a perception that I have noticed over the years that, for if a company files bankruptcy, it's seen as a wise move, a healing process. Like, for example, an airline filed for bankruptcy, its stock goes up. The executives are praised for taking well-reasoned action, says the article. Whereas for individuals, there's a stigma that they're doing something that is immoral, or they're trying to game the system or get something for free. And that is just almost never the case. And if it is, those people who are gaming a system may not get a discharge. If their case is filed in bad faith, they won't get a discharge. So it's really for honest people to get incredibly effective help to turn things around, to rebuild their credit. And so if you are interested in how this might affect you, because again, the information I'm giving is general in nature, you can give me a call or uh, look me up on the internet at bolgerlaw.com. That's BOLGERLAW.com. And hope that you found this podcast useful.